want to take just a couple of minutes and talk about number 4 from the worksheet and review kind of a scatter plot one more time. Number 4 talks about education, and it states the table at the right gives the number of hours spent studying for a science exam and the final exam grade. And you can see the data right here. And we established studying hours as your X, which is independent, versus your grade, which would be dependent, because the number of hours you study will happen, but the grade is what will follow based on the number that you study. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my X values. And so this is the number of hours that I'm going to study. And then the Y will be the grade. And you can see in this particular one that there are no increments put in for either the X or the Y. So I want to think about what the lowest number is and the highest number for each. So the lowest number that I get for study hours is 0, and the highest that I get is 5. So that one, pretty straightforward, right? We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Each box is an increment of 1. Now for the grade though, we look for the lowest, which is 60, and then the highest that we see on this graph is 92. So you can see kind of the range of numbers in there. So it wouldn't make sense, and we talked about this in class the other day, this right here is called a break in the graph. It kind of got cut off. And so I don't really want to show numbers below 60 because that really wouldn't make sense, because we don't have data showing that. So I'm going to put 60 right here. And kind of depending on how many boxes, I need to figure out what the most logical thing would be. And based on the numbers and the number of boxes and how much I want to use, I'm going to count by 5s. So this would be 65, this would be 70. I don't have to show each one because I'll be able to figure that out. And then 90 is right here. And then I can plot the points. So go ahead, pause the video, plot your points. So you can see the points that I plotted, and you can notice that there does look to be a correlation. It's a positive slope, and that should make sense. Hopefully the more that we study, the increase in our grade will be. So I want you to, again, pause the video, and I want you to, use a straight edge, draw a line of best fit. And this is where I drew mine, and obviously yours might be slightly different than mine. And I have some above, I have some below, and it shows the correlation. The points that I'm going to use to find my slope, I'm going to use this right here, and I'm going to use this. And the points that I'm going to use the data point, which is 170. And I want to use 592. Again, if yours was a little off, you could always, find one that splits right down the middle of the line. Doesn't have to be. As long as they're kind of spread out, it gives you the idea of the slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm fulfilling what B is, and I'm going to write an equation of the line. So I'm going to calculate the slope. 92 minus 70 over 5 minus 1. That's going to give us 22 over 4. That reduces to 11 over 2. Then I'm going to use point slope form. And we're going to plug in our slope. And the point that I'm going to use 170. That's a nice number to use. So 11 halves, and I'm going to do x minus 1. And again, I'm going to make this into slope-intercept form, so I can kind of check it against my line to make sure it makes sense. Add the 70, and you get 64, oops, not 66, 64 and a half. So when I add the 70 to that, again, remember you want a common denominator to add those. And I'm just going to quickly compare it over here. If I look at where my y-intercept is, does it look about 64 and a half? I would say that's pretty accurate. And again, I can kind of check that slope to see if it does indeed match up. So again, there's my equation using point slope. Y equals 11 halves x plus 64 and a half. Okay, so C says predict the grade for a student who studied for 6 hours. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use my line of best fit to predict this. Again, this is the number of hours studying, so this would be our X. So what we would do for that is we would plug it into our equation that we came up with. So Y equals 11 over 2 times 6 plus 64 and a half. So go ahead, do the calculations, and you should get a score of 97.5. And we want to check that with a graph. So if I had 6 hours here, and that point goes there, is that approximately what we have? And it does, so that kind of checks out for C. And then we want to kind of analyze a couple other things. This says, could this line go on forever? You know, usually we want arrows at the end. In this case, I want you to think about what it's representing. It's talking about a test score. So could this go on forever? Negative infinity to infinity. The answer would be no, because could you have a negative test score? Probably not, right? It's going to cap out at 0. And then this right here. Even if there was extra credit, you probably wouldn't get like 300 points or anything like that. So again, that's going to cap out. So this is kind of a prediction, probably between, you know, a score of 0 to 100, depending on if there's extra credit. I want you to also think about what the slope means. This is 11 over 2. Think about what Y means. That's your grade, right? Over X, rise over run, and the number of hours you study. So the idea is here, for every 2 hours that you study, your grade will increase by 11 points. So so again, that's how we can kind of figure out how many hours we study to increase our grade. And then finally, I want to think about what the y-intercept is. The y-intercept is 0, 64.5. This means if I studied 0 hours, my grade would be 64.5. And hopefully that would make sense. Even if you're sitting in class, you know, listening a little bit, you probably have some kind of base knowledge or something, or even prior knowledge when you get into a test. Just because you don't study doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a 0. It means that, you know, you improve the skills that you already have. So again, when you're doing the rest of these worksheets, it's really important that you're thinking about how the data relates to each other, what it actually means, the interpretation of things. So what I want you to do now is you are going to finish the back of that worksheet, number 5, 6, and 7, which has to do with baseball, disease, and zoos.